Hello, and thank you for joining me today. You are watching The Billionaire's Mindset. I am your host, Harry B. I got one question for you guys. I got one question for specifically MAGA. Do you know Russia? Do you understand Russia and Putin's stance on the world? If you don't know, and if you watched the news yesterday with President Trump and Zelenskyy in the Oval Office, if you don't really understand what went on yesterday, I do have some explanation that will make sense of what happened yesterday. And I need y'all to understand who Putin really is, right? Who he really is, and why he is such a danger to the rest of us, the rest of the world. So while we celebrate Musk holding chainsaws and wearing a graphic tee and trying to slash things that's going on in America, while we celebrate thousands of Americans getting fired from their government job, while we celebrate the Republicans doging people here in America, there is a danger that is happening that may happen also around the world because of how President Trump is aligning himself with Putin. Rachel Maddow does a great job explaining this danger, and I wanted us to take a listen today. Let's take a listen.
We've got eyes on potentially some developing court proceedings live tonight. It's a really busy Friday night. There's a lot to get to. I am really glad you are here. And I will be honest, I'm feeling a little fired up tonight. I'm what's that phrase? I feel like I'm loaded for bear, right? So I'm just going to do this. I don't care. Let's just do it. Let's just start right in with something that Republicans really, really, really do not want to talk about. And part of the way you can tell they don't want to talk about it is because when they get asked about it, they turn pink, they stammer, they stomp their feet and put the microphone down. They do not want to talk about this at all. Republican Congressman Scott Fitzgerald of Wisconsin, for example, does not want to talk about this at all.
You personally believe that the newly elected Ukraine is a dictator and started the war against Russia?
No, I don't. No, like I said, I voted for the first tranche. No, Ukraine didn't start the war.
Why do we
I'm not.
Have you expressed your opinion to Trump?
Is it Donald Trump? No.
Why?
No.
Because he stood there in front of everybody. Use your voice.
I don't think that the president's goals are not what everybody wants, which is to end the war, right? End the war. So if you don't want to end the war, then you're in a different position. You've got to have some type of negotiated end to this. He's certainly pushing hard for that to happen. And if I can't speak over everybody. And if Zelenskyy needs.
Are you tired of your YouTube channel not getting the attention it deserves? Building a YouTube channel can be a very lucrative and successful.
Needs to be in the room. He absolutely needs to be. I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with the idea that he needs to be. He's probably part of the solution, right? So I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like, but I guess it's a good thing that the negotiations will continue, and hopefully we'll end up in a position where the entire conflict comes to a halt on a negotiated level. So, okay. Matthew,
There's a Matthew here somewhere. Matthew, please tell me you want to talk about like potholes or prostitution, pot legalization, anything about this Putin stuff. This stuff is making me very, very pink. I do not want to talk about this stuff. Let's talk about something else. Republican Congressman Rich McCormick in Georgia, same problem.
I would like to know your opinion and your stance on the current situation created by the president, wherein he is now saying that Ukraine is responsible for the war that Russia has initiated. And I would like to know if you as a congressman will get with your fellow congresspeople and stand up to the lies that are being told to the Americans. And I would also like to know if you believe that the 80-year-old alliance that we have with our European allies is strong enough to withstand the attack from our White House, because this is a dangerous, dangerous precedent. You as a serviceman should help us.
Very dangerous.
Zelenskyy, I think, is an honest broker of what he's trying to accomplish. He wants to save his nation, and I want Ukraine to win. And President Trump said he wants to, and I know you're gonna get. This is what he said. But it's in our best interest. It's in our best interest, in my opinion. And by the way, this splits the Republican Party down the middle. Half the Republicans support, half the. Have repeatedly spoken up on this. Repeatedly.
Why is this splitting y'all?
I'm speaking about
in
it
the
right now,
middle?
and I voted for Ukraine. And I have voted for Ukraine support every single time.
You guys, I will turn this town hall right around. I'm putting my microphone down. This keeps happening to Republican members of Congress in their Republican districts and to Republican senators in their red states. Republican Congressman Mike Kennedy in Utah, Republican Congressman Kevin Hern in Oklahoma, Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski in Alaska.
Responsible for starting the war in Ukraine.
Thank you for asking this question.
Do you share his sentiment, and do you think funding should be cut from Ukraine?
I don't know that the president said that. I knew he was going to say that. I knew he was going to say that. Oh my gosh. So, as to start the war, as far as I can tell, Putin started the war.
Yes, yes.
Personally, do you support Ukraine or Russia?
Well, here's no. It's not easy, ma'am. It's not easy. It's not easy.
Is Zelenskyy a dictator? Yes or no?
That part I have a problem with that statement. Yes.
Okay. Did Ukraine start the war?
Well,
it's simple.
Do you support?
Did Ukraine start the war? Yes or no? Did Ukraine start the war?
I want to know where you stand
It's not part of
on
it.
Ukraine or Russia. We have been supporting Zelenskyy for years now. 3 years. And
America has been supporting Ukraine for years. So they are our ally. These are our allies. So when your congressman can stand before you and cannot articulate himself or herself or just say yes or no that Ukraine did not start the war, they're protecting their jobs, they're protecting their bottom line, whatever it is. They want to more so align with Trump. They don't want to get in trouble with Trump. So here they are, not supporting your ally. It's crazy. Again, I will ask you the question. Does MAGA understand? Does MAGA understand who Russia is in the bigger picture, in the bigger scheme of things? Does MAGA understand who Russia is, who Putin is, being a former KGB agent? Do you know the history, and do you know why it's so dangerous to align with this guy, and why other presidents, former presidents of the United States of America, have always went against Russia? And do y'all understand what we mean by when we say the free world? This is so very important. The Republicans, or I don't know if all of those people in that room are Republicans, but those that are in that room, they seem to understand that. They seem to understand, and they're standing up for American values and American ideals. Does the rest of MAGA understand this? This needs to be urgent for every American. This goes beyond. If Russia is able to infiltrate America, what this means is dangerous. And I can't stress this enough. It is very dangerous if Russia has already begun to infiltrate America. Later on in this video, a Russian reporter is able to live stream in the Oval Office. And you will see that. How did that happen? I have no idea. But this is important. Just keep paying attention. I'm telling you right now, we need to get this under grips. If we don't, it has very dangerous implications.
Putin started this. Now we're isolating, or he is isolating America. He's calling names and all this. Where do you?
Let me just say this. This is not the tactic that I would use to try to solve the problem.
I would like to express my dismay over the president's stance on Ukraine, including, as everyone knows, his outright falsehoods. And I'm curious, I imagine I know what your views are, but more significantly, what can the legislative branch do, and what do they have the stomach for to support a peaceful resolution that involves the leaders of Ukraine and not just Trump and Putin? That's my question.
Yeah, well, I think we were all more than a little bit stunned, really concerned about just this radical switch. I mean, it was literally last week. The president was speaking about how he was going to work to end the war in Ukraine. I think we would all like to see we would like to see a peaceful and positive outcome to the bloodshed after these years. And so to now hear President Trump's comments, very derisive comments about President Zelenskyy today, I felt were uncalled for and unfortunate. It is wrong to suggest that somehow or other Ukraine started this war, asked for this war, but I think we're all kind of scratching our heads at how quickly the conversation has gone from being one that is supportive of President Zelenskyy to now being more supportive of Putin.
So if this was a Democrat or a Democratic president that was aligning himself with Putin, you can kind of tell how you're mincing, you're being very careful how to choose your words and what type of words you choose, because in the back of your head you're thinking, okay, I got to be very careful here before I either, I'm saying, get on the bad side of Trump and the MAGA world, what they're going to be able to say, what they're going to say about me on Truth Social or Twitter. So people are being very careful and choosing their words very carefully. If this was a Democrat being the president, they will not mince any words at all. They will come and they will pounce, because this is our ally, and there is no way on the planet that we as Republicans, or we as people who understand the world stage, the free world, when we say the free world, we cannot be aligning ourselves with someone or a country like Russia. That's why it's very important. I keep asking the question, do you know Russia, and do you understand Putin, who he is, and what their implications are on the world stage? That's for the MAGA that don't understand, because it's not all MAGA that don't understand, because it's obvious that some of these people that are in these town hall meetings are MAGA, right? So we can't cast a blanket over MAGA and, castrate every MAGA person, but there are a certain section of the MAGA community that just wants to burn the whole thing down. And for those, I'm asking, do you love America? Are you a patriot? If you are flying a flag on your house, on your car, F Biden, if you are that group of MAGA, do you understand or do you even love America? You consider yourself a patriot. Do you really understand what a patriot means? I mean, no disrespect. But if you love your country, you love the Constitution of the United States of America, do you really understand the implications? How beautiful this country is, how great this country is. Do you really know that? Or are you so mad, so angry with what's going on that you've lost the value in what America means on the world stage? Let's keep listening. Stay tuned. We got a lot more to come.
This radical switch. Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, in a town hall with her constituents last week, she says we're all scratching our heads at how quickly the conversation in the White House has now gone from being supportive of Zelensky to now being supportive of Putin instead. Scratching our heads. Republicans are having a hard time with this. They try to move on to the next question. They express annoyance with their own constituents for asking about it. They get brusque and short in their answers. Or, like Senator Lisa Murkowski, they just purport to be really perplexed, really confused, really scratching my head. They have a hard time with this. All the Republicans do, especially the guy at the top.
You just mentioned Putin, though, and this has been this controversy of the past week. Can you say yes or no whether you have talked to Vladimir Putin since you stopped being president?
Well, I don't comment on that. If I have a relationship,
very much like
I don't
you
talk about.
did talk
I don't
to him.
talk about. No, I don't talk about that.
You talk about talking to Netanyahu.
I don't talk about that. I don't ever say. Why don't you talk about it? I don't ever say about. Why not? What does that mean? I mean, that was right before the election. But it continued after the election. And people get so mad when I play this tape. People get very angry with me when I play this tape. And, you know, honestly, bring it on. Makes me appreciate it all the more.
If you want to quit your job and work from home, flick this setting on your phone. My family laughed when I said I'd quit my job.
Because clearly, at least it strikes a nerve. Watch.
Have you talked to President Putin?
No, I have not.
You haven't talked to President Putin
No, I have
since
not.
you've been
You mean,
elected?
well, I don't want to say that, but I haven't spoken to him recently.
So you've spoken to President Putin since you've
I
been
don't want
elected?
to say that. I don't want to say anything about that.
I would like to be talking to Vladimir Putin.
Who? Have you spoken to him? I don't want to say.
So you've already spoken to Vladimir Putin
I don't want to
since?
say that.
I don't want to say. I don't want to say. I can't say. Why can't you say? Why can't you say? What precludes you from saying? Listen, it's Friday night. Let's just do this. Let's just cut to the chase here. Let's do a little look-see at the landscape to see why exactly it is so hard for Republicans to deal with this topic. What exactly is so hard for Republicans to talk about? What exactly is it that we are doing, up to and including switching sides in a war? But it's not limited to that. It's all things that don't seem like good news for the United States. That makes them particularly hard to talk about. But nevertheless, with Donald Trump back in the White House, we keep doing these things relentlessly and urgently, and they all cut in the same direction. And it's really hard for Republicans to explain because of what it obviously means. It's clear why they do not want to talk about this stuff, and it gets all the more clear when you just line this stuff up. Let me show you what I mean. Here's one. Donald Trump's handpicked attorney general. She gets sworn in to lead the U.S. Justice Department. On her first day on the job, what is the first thing she does? Headline: U.S. cuts task forces on foreign influence and Russian sanctions. Quote, in a memo sent to staff Wednesday, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi revealed she had disbanded the Foreign Influence Task Force, a unit dedicated to investigating violations of the Foreign Agents Registration Act. Bondi did not elaborate, but figures on the Republican Party's conspiratorial far right.
This is where I want you to pay close attention. Rachel has this this entire narrative set up. Pay very close attention to what she is about to do. This is not a Trump hating channel. I'm not here to hate Trump, but I'm here to uncover some things, and I'm here to say, hey, you might want to pay attention of what's going on, because the mandate was to make egg prices lower. The mandate was to lower prices. The mandate was to make government more efficient, which Doge is supposed to be doing. The mandate was to make sure that we are okay here in the United States. That was the mandate, right? But I want you to pay attention to what Rachel's about to set up here, because while there's a smoke screen, while there's this celebration of Doge going in there with a sledgehammer, with Elon Musk, right, doing everything he's doing, and we're celebrating, and not, let me not say we, because I can't bring myself to celebrate thousands, 12,000 plus, 20,000 government employees who are not politicians per se, right? Just regular Americans losing their job. I can't bring myself to celebrate that, because that's not the mindset of an heir. The mindset of an heir to the kingdom of Christ. This is the Billionaire's Mindset YouTube channel. So I cannot bring myself to celebrate that when I see my countrymen struggling and suffering, having to now figure out how they're going to pay for their child's school, how they're going to buy meals. I can't bring myself to celebrate that, regardless of what side I'm on. If you find yourself celebrating, if you find yourself being so excited about draining the swamp, maybe you need to ask yourself, why am I so happy? So the other thing that's happening while you're being distracted with Elon Musk and his sledgehammer and his chainsaw, this is the other thing that's happening. You may not care so much about this part, but a lot of your constituents, a lot of your MAGA supporters, and a lot of your MAGA counterparts, they understand what Russia means to the world, and they're asking these questions. So pay attention to this part. It's very, very important that you understand what is being laid out here. Let's keep listening.
Right, have accused the government of abusing FARA to unfairly target political operatives like Paul Manafort, Trump's 2016 campaign chair, who was indicted in a probe into Russian influence in that year's U.S. election. Also on Wednesday, the day of her swearing in, Bondi disbanded Task Force Klepto Capture, an initiative started in 2022 to enforce sanctions against Russia. Who's all that good for? Shutting down the Foreign Influence Task Force, shutting down enforcement of the Foreign Agents Registration Act, and getting rid of the task force that enforces sanctions against Russia. Who are all those things good for? Why'd we do those things? And so urgently, her first day on the job. Here's another one, which happened that same day. Quote, in a little notice directive on her first day in office, Attorney General Pam Bondi ordered a halt to a years-old federal law enforcement effort to combat secret influence campaigns by China, Russia, and other adversaries that try to curry favor and sow chaos in American politics. Buried on the fourth page of one of 14 policy memos Bondi issued Wednesday, the order disbands the FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force. Last year, Justice Department prosecutors and FBI agents exposed an alleged scheme in which Russia-backed media funneled $10 million to a conservative U.S. media company that hired prominent right-wing influencers. Here's how the New York Times bannered that one bluntly. Quote, Trump dismantles government fight against foreign influence operations. Dozens of employees who had been working to fight foreign interference in U.S. elections have been reassigned or forced out. That includes not only the FBI, but also CISA, the cybersecurity division at Homeland.
Picture this. You're sitting at your desk, drowning in Slack messages, wondering why your team keeps missing
security.
Why would that happen? Let's run that back real quick.
Bluntly, quote, Trump dismantles government fight against foreign influence operations.
Trump dismantles government fight against foreign influence operations. Why would you do that? You're an American. Foreign influences inside your country. Why would you dismantle the effort to stop them from entering our sphere? You don't have to love or hate Trump. It's a simple question to start wondering, because if you're in an echo chamber of Republican news outlets, somebody's got to be responsible for this stuff. Why would you want to dismantle foreign influence in the United States? So if you step outside of your echo chamber to understand what else is going on in the other news, because I think a lot of Trump's media is more so about pleasing him, about appeasing him. If you step outside for 1 second to understand what's really going on in the world, in the rest of the world, where you're not touting Trump's talking points, what else is going on? And does this type of thing actually upset you? When you see this headline where it says Trump dismantles government fight against foreign influence operations, does that upset you? Is that something that you're like, oh, who cares? That's cap. That's a lie because you are a Trump hater? Is that what this is for you when you see this type of headline? Let's keep going.
Dozens of employees who had been working to fight foreign interference in U.S. elections have been reassigned or forced out. That includes not only the FBI, but also CISA, the cybersecurity division at Homeland Security, which we soon learned the president's top campaign donor had installed a 19-year-old operative who reportedly personally operates websites in Russia and who has been associated with multiple criminal cyber hacking gangs. That's who the president's top campaign donor installed at CISA, giving him full access to systems and data at the U.S. government's cybersecurity agency. A 19-year-old kid with ties to Russia and cybercrime.
Yo, what are we doing? Let's run this one back so you can really think about what's happening. Again, I'm going to ask you the question. Do you know Russia? Do you know Putin? Do you understand Putin and Russia's implication on the world stage? How cunning they are. Do you know them? While we are celebrating Trump and his victory, and we being Republican and being ready to drain the swamp and cut fat in the government, Elon Musk with his sledgehammer, his chainsaw, while we're celebrating all of that, are we paying attention to stuff like this? Do you get news like this? Do you understand why this type of information is important, that we are paying attention to 19-year-olds who are aligned with Russia being put at critical information data gathering places in our nation? And does that upset you? Do you get to a point where you say, well, hold on now, let me ask you a question, Trump and MAGA? Do you say, well, hold on now, I'm a MAGA, but I don't know if that's good? Or do you celebrate it all? Are you celebrating all of it? Your fellow Americans being fired and them being casualties of I guess political war. While you're celebrating that, are you paying attention to what's happening inside of your country? And does this upset you? And if it doesn't upset you, why doesn't it upset you? Let's run this one back just a little bit. Just pay attention. Let's run it back.
The president's top campaign donor had installed a 19-year-old operative who reportedly personally operates websites in Russia and who has been associated with multiple criminal cyber hacking gangs.
Elon Musk hired a 19-year-old that is associated with Russia websites and cyber information. Let that sink in.
That's who the president's top campaign donor installed at CISA, giving him full access to systems and data at the U.S. government's cybersecurity agency. A 19-year-old kid with ties to Russia and cybercrime. Who's that good for?
Mm-hmm.
How do you explain to your constituents who that's good for and why we are doing that as a country? And what else? What else is hard to explain to ye olde constituents when it comes to that radical switch in the U.S. government that Lisa Murkowski described? How about this? Headline: CIA plans largest mass firing in nearly 50 years. Well, that's good for someone. Who's that good for? That came right after this. Oh, Trump's new handpicked CIA director sent a list of CIA employees to the White House in an unclassified email. Quote, current officials confirm that the CIA had sent the names of employees to the Office of Personnel Management, complying with an executive order signed by President Trump. Senator Mark Warner, top Democrat on the Intelligence Committee, wrote that the sharing of the officers' names was a, quote, disastrous national security development. One former agency officer called the reporting of the names in an unclassified email a, quote, counterintelligence disaster.
So, if you don't understand what Rachel is talking about and why Republicans are saying that this is disastrous, it's because Elon Musk and Donald Trump understands, or maybe don't understand, that the KGB is an intelligent agency on the world stage that will take these names and go after these people. You must understand why that's important.
Ah, yes, a disaster for the United States and for U.S. intelligence in particular, but very good news for someone. Hey, speaking of things that ought to be classified, headline: How Trump's security clearances order could make the U.S. vulnerable. The plan to give temporary security clearances without background checks opens the door to breaches and espionage, experts say. Giving out security clearances without background checks that look for things like, criminal entanglements, lots of debt, anything that they could blackmail you over, or any contacts with foreign governments. To make sure that you're not, secretly working for, we're not doing the background checks anymore. Trump just has ordered that the classified material be made available to whoever he says with no checks. That doesn't seem like good news for the United States. But again, it's good news for someone. How about when they decided that the first agency they would destroy would be USAID? Who cheered the loudest for that? Russia welcomes USAID cuts, calls agency machine for interfering. Yeah, it was fantastic news for someone. No one was seen to benefit more or to be more loudly cheering it on than Vladimir Putin. And that was before the specific news confirmed today that among the projects Trump is explicitly and specifically turning off right now, this week, is the program by which the U.S. helps Ukraine keep its electric grid up and running. Even though Russia has repeatedly targeted that electric grid throughout the war. Because Russia's idea of how it wants to win the unprovoked war it declared on our ally is to make the civilian population, including kids and the elderly and hospital patients and everyone, their best idea for how to prosecute that war is to cause them to freeze to death by bombing the electric grid in February. So more than any other evident targeting, they have targeted the electric grid that serves the civilian population in Ukraine.
Why would Trump turn off or stop the support of that? You're in the Oval Office and you're saying we have a deal. We're going to make a deal to end this war. We're going to make a deal which is going to make Trump seem like a peacemaker, and he may get a Nobel Peace Prize. And Trump is saying that the questions that talk about the fact somebody was in the audience, was it America One or USA One or something like that? America One or something like that. And they were asking favorable questions to Trump, and Trump was eating that stuff up. Trump is saying, I really like that question. I really like this guy. When the guy says, when he's asking the questions that has to do with Trump looking like a peacemaker, and then Trump taking the opportunity to say, yeah, I just want peace. So if you want peace and you're talking about these, the idea of peace with Zelensky sitting right next to you, why then would there be news out there that says that Trump is going to stop the support that helps the Ukraine to protect their electric grid, their power grid, which Russia and Putin wants to actually attack? Because if you turn that off, if you stop that support, if they get access to that, is then going to freeze the Ukrainians to death. Do you want peace, or are you aligning yourself with Putin? Stay tuned, because there is a guest that's going to come on, which Rachel talked about in the beginning, that is going to explain to you what is really going on here. He says something that I think is very important. But again, do you know Russia? MAGA, do you know Russia? Do you love your country enough to understand the history of this country and Russia, and why all U.S. presidents prior to Trump have always stayed away from aligning themselves with Putin? And what is it that why is it that you think Trump is so pro-Putin? Do you remember the first election when Trump asked Russia to actually release the emails of Hillary Clinton? Is there a deal on the table with Trump and Russia? Does Trump owe Russia something? These are questions we have to ask, whether we love Trump or not, whether you are a pro-Trump person or not. If you are an American, if you are a Constitution-loving American, if you fly a flag on your house, if you carry a flag, if it's on your table, if it's on your desk, in your cubicle, if you fly one on your car, if you have a F Biden sticker, but you love America, again, you love America, you are a patriot. If that is the case, do you know what the history of Russia is to this country? And the reason why I keep asking these questions is because I know the implication if Russia is able to infiltrate America. I know the implications on small countries like Liberia, Africa as a whole. As you can tell, my hat, right? I know the implication that once Russia, as cunning as the KGB agent Putin is, as cunning as he is, if he's able to do what he's trying to do with Trump, you do not understand the implications. So please pay attention. You don't understand what's going to happen if Putin is able to do what he's doing. Let's keep watching.
It is the United States that has helped Ukraine masterfully keep the power grid up.
A performance that truly matters. Get tickets now at shenyun.com.
Despite those repeated onslaughts by Russia. Until this week, when Trump just cut it off. Which is good news for someone, right?
It is. For Russia.
President dressed up the defense secretary he handpicked off the cast of the Fox and Friends weekend show, put him in a bright blue suit, and sent him to Europe, where he volunteered unasked that Ukraine can't be expected to keep all of its own territory. He said that would be, quote, unrealistic. It would be, quote, unrealistic to not let Russia take parts of Ukraine. He then volunteered unasked that Ukraine will not be allowed to join NATO.
So hear what Rachel just said. Volunteered, not asked. Nobody asked him. Nobody said, hey, nobody said, hey, what about Ukraine not joining NATO? Hey, what about Ukraine not keeping all of their territories in the negotiation? Wait, nobody asked them. Unprovoked. Was he sent with a message? In the conversation, Trump and Putin conversation, in that conversation, is Putin asking to take certain parts of the Ukraine? Is that part of the negotiation? And then President Trump says in that meeting with Zelenskyy that you cannot expect to keep all of your territories. Was he expecting the Ukraine president to say, oh yeah, I understand that. Let him have some of it? What did he expect the Ukrainian president to say? Is there a deal on the table that Putin is going to take parts of Ukraine and he's the part that he wants? And that is the only way that he would sign the deal? So, and now Ukraine is supposed to give us some of their territories to Russia. And Russia is supposed to occupy that. And then it makes sense. This is supposed to make sense that several Ukraine territories will be occupied by Russia. And then Russia is not going to want to take the rest of it. If Russia is able to occupy certain Ukrainian territories, Putin, knowing who he is, do you know who Putin is? Do you know who Russia is? So then we are not to expect Russia to then want to take more. How many of y'all out there really believe that? This blue-suited guy was not asked or provoked to insert that information in his meetings, and he provided that information. Nobody was talking about that. And he just said, yeah, you can't expect that. So what that's telling me is that there's already a deal on the table that includes Russia owning parts or taking over territories in the Ukraine. And that setup meeting in the Oval Office where Vice President J.D. Vance, President Donald Trump were tag teaming and trying to come and overpowering the Ukrainian president. And the poor guy, if you paid attention to that news, if you watch that news, that report, body linguistics, they do this thing where they say something where they say, watch a person when they're talking. Zelenskyy was holding his thumb and he's holding his hands like this. Let me put myself on a bigger screen so you can see what I'm talking about. Zelenskyy was doing a lot of this right here. When body linguistics say when somebody is doing that, they're trying to not say or express emotions that they're feeling inside. So Zelensky was under a lot of pressure, but being in front of the United States media and being in front of the world, he couldn't come off as being combative and pressuring Trump. We already know how Trump is going to react. We saw it ourselves. So he's doing this. He's trying to hold back something because Trump is telling him that nothing is off the board when it comes to the negotiations. And Zelensky is sitting there doing this, and he's like, what do you mean? He's thinking that, but he knows he has to mince his words. He has to be very careful what he says with Trump in front of the media. So he's sitting there trying to hold back and make sure that he understands the negotiations with Trump, the type of person, the type of human being that Trump is, how he thinks, right? And he's sitting there trying his best to try not to say that there are certain things that are off the table. We were not, just like the United States does not negotiate with terrorists. What if that was the policy of the Ukraine, that we don't negotiate with terrorists, or we don't negotiate with Russia on certain things? But Trump is trying to say that, oh yeah, they're going to take this, they're going to take that, they're going to take that, and you have to be okay with it if you want your people to stop dying. 700,000 of your men have died. If you want that to end, then you're going to have to give up this territory, that territory, and you're going to have to be okay with it. And I can see Zelensky sitting in that meeting, and he's trying his best to say certain things are unnegotiable, but I got to be able to control myself in this meeting because I know the implications of coming off aggressive. Let's keep watching.
Now we've got pro-Trump Republican senators saying, yeah, not just Ukraine won't be allowed in NATO, we ought to get out of NATO too, which of course would collapse NATO. Who would that most benefit? For whom would that be really, really good news? Donald Trump says, let's let Russia back into the G7. Donald Trump is reportedly preparing right now for his own big in-person summit with Vladimir Putin. Donald Trump already started high-level meetings between the Russian and U.S. governments, including an inexplicable 3.5-hour meeting specifically between the president's real estate friend and Vladimir Putin himself. Steve Witkoff came back from that meeting, and how'd that go? Went pretty well for someone. Headline, parroting Putin and Trump, Witkoff says Russia was provoked into invading Ukraine. Headline, Trump envoy can't name a single concession Russia will make in peace deal.
What?
What does it seem like is going on here?
Bro, stop playing with me, bro. What are we talking about? If you can't name a single concession that Russia is going to make in the peace deal, then who is this peace deal benefiting? This peace deal is benefiting Russia. Because if Russia has the power, and if you remember in that meeting with Zelensky, Trump kept saying, you don't have the cards here. Trump kept telling Zelensky, you don't have the cards. You're a small country. Russia has all of the cards. They're killing y'all. And they're overpowering you. And you can't do this without the United States of America. You can't do this without me. Trump kept saying to Zelensky that Obama and Biden were incompetent. They could not stop this war from happening. And he's the only one that could stop this war from happening. And Zelensky needs him, because he's the only one that can negotiate a peace deal. So if Russia cannot find, or if the report says that he couldn't name one concession that Russia was willing to make, then why are we even negotiating? Why in the world would I sit down with someone to negotiate, and you're not willing to give up anything. You're not willing to say, well, this is how many troops we're going to pull back. This is when we are willing to end this war. We are not going to take over your power grid. We're not going to do X, Y, and Z. If you're not willing to make any concessions, then why am I even negotiating? Why am I here sitting down with Donald Trump? If I am a president of a sovereign nation, if I'm president of Liberia, my home country, and I'm negotiating, I'm sitting down with Donald Trump, right? So for us to negotiate. If that's the case, if I'm sitting here and I know that Russia wants to take everything, why am I even sitting down with Donald Trump? Who's over here pouting his chest about how, America is the best and all of these great things. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, yeah, we know that. You are the world's leader. How does the heir think about this? How does an heir of the kingdom of Christ think about this? To whom much is given, much is required. So yes, America, we all love America because America has the U.S. aid. America can provide aid to the smaller countries like my country, Liberia. America can come to our aid because their military is great, and they can provide a lot of military support to our little countries. While we taught that and we say we are grateful for America for all of that, we are a sovereign nation. So we're not bowing down to America. We are grateful for your support, but we can't bow down to you just saying, oh, well, we're greater than you and we'll destroy you if you come against us. That's not how you treat your allies. That's why it's very important that we pay attention to what is going on. If Russia is able to infiltrate the biggest free nation in the world, what happens to the small nations? Russia has Trump tied around their fingers. What is the implications for smaller nations like Liberia, smaller nations in Africa, smaller nations like Ukraine that can't protect themselves, that need help from bigger nations like Europe? What happens to the smaller nations if America, which is the biggest ally, the free nation, what happens if America starts aligning themselves with people like Russia? This is not a good thing at all on the global stage. So while we celebrate here in America, egg prices being $8, $12, close to $1 per egg, while we celebrate our fellow Americans being fired from their job, while we told this South African Elon Musk holding chainsaws and chainsaw, while we do all of that, let me get this in also. When Biden was elected president and sworn in, the very first thing that the Republican pundit said, now he has to govern America, all Americans, including the Trump supporters. That was the very first thing. I remember that. As soon as they projected Biden wins, the very first thing they said was, now he has to govern America, all Americans. But for some reason, some odd reason, Trump gets elected. He's projected the winner. And we don't get that same sentiment. We're not calling for him to govern all Americans. He literally says he's going after his political opponents. He is going into the FBI. He is going into every department trying to find those who were against him, and he's going to inflict pain on them. Emotional, possibly physical pain. But no Republican is coming out to say, well, Trump should be governing all Americans. That is quite interesting. That I don't hear nobody saying how Trump should be governing Biden supporters, Harris supporters. I don't hear nobody like talking that. I don't hear nobody saying a word about that. How's that? The second a Democrat is elected, that's the very first thing we hear in the news. How now you got to bring the country together and let us heal so that we can move forward and doing the bidding for our Americans and the taxpayers. That's the first thing we will hear. But then when it happens to Donald Trump, when Donald Trump gets elected and projected the winner, nothing, crickets. Nobody says anything about governing. As a matter of fact, we're championing him, going after his political enemies. Are you American? Why do you hate America? Why do you flag flags? Why do you fly flags on your house and on your car? But you don't like American values. You don't like the fact that we have a constitution that says, hey, the president has to govern all Americans. Those are American values. This is what makes America's democracy, democratic process held around the world. America goes out and take out other leaders from other sovereign nations because you want to install a democratic process. But here we are. Our democratic process is being violated, and our counterparts, people who are MAGA supporters, they sit and they celebrate the fact that that's being done. How? How can you be a lover of America and the Constitution of the United States, and you support America going across the waters in other sovereign nations? And sovereign just means that they stand alone. It's their country. America don't have them. You can go over there and take out their leaders, kill them, because you want to install a democratic process. But then when it comes to us violating that democratic process and the oath that people take in office, when that's being violated, it's okay now. Do you love America? Are you a patriot, or are you just angry? Let's keep watching.
Imagine if a foreign adversary, imagine if the Putin government somehow could just do a thought experiment. Imagine they could somehow exert control or influence over the government of the United States.
Imagine that.
What do you think the Putin government would have the US government do if he could control it? What kind of headlines would you expect to see about the operations of our government under that kind of a scenario? And what would you expect the news out of the Oval Office and the White House to look like on a day like today? At the start of this made-for-TV debacle at the White House today, where the president and Vice President J.D. Vance screamed at our ally Vladimir Zelenskyy and berated him with Russian government talking points. When this happened today in Washington, there's a couple things that stuck out to me. First of all, at the very start of this photo op, they had all the press in the room. Trump was asked right at the outset when he last spoke with Vladimir Putin. He said, quote, a couple of days ago, which was news because the US government had said nothing about Donald Trump speaking with Vladimir Putin.
I want to highlight right here where Trump touches the leader of Ukraine. I want to highlight how disrespectful this really is. You are not to put your hands on a sovereign leader. You're not. Under no circumstance should you put your hands on a sovereign leader, unless you're shaking hands or something. You are not to touch a sovereign leader.
Which was news because the US government had said nothing about.
Right there. You see right here? You are not to touch a sovereign leader ever, to put your hands on a sovereign leader. Trump's hands should not be on Zelensky. I know you're trying to explain things and you're trying to do whatever, and the debate is getting heated and whatnot, but you are not to put your hands on a sovereign leader. This is known as very disrespectful. In this same meeting, somebody right here, somebody in the corner, standing over, I think the guy in the blue suit, could have been the guy in the black suit, but standing in the corner over J.D. Vance, asks the president of Ukraine and says, do you own a suit? Do you own a suit? And why are you not wearing a suit in the Oval Office? This is to a president. Bruh, this is to a president. Do you own a suit? And why are you not wearing a suit when you meet the president of the United States? We respect the Oval Office. We respect the United States government. Where was this question when Elon Musk was wearing a graphic tee and a blazer and a snapback hat, a Trump hat, in the meeting with the cabinet, in the cabinet meeting, standing over everybody else with the hat on, a graphic tee, and a blazer? No suit on. Nobody, no Republican, well, I don't know, all Republicans, but nobody official came out to say, do you own a suit? And why are you not wearing a suit? The hypocrisy, the double standard in real time is unfathomable. I don't know what we're going to do or what we should be doing. My countrymen, lend me your ear. If you love America and you care of the values and the ideals of America, don't have double standards. Pay attention to what's going on. We have to, as much as we respect our leaders in our Oval Office and how we revere it, we also have to respect and give respect to other leaders when they come and visit us. Trump in that meeting should have reprimanded the person speaking. Let me make this clear. Let me make this very clear to whoever is listening and you don't understand what I'm saying right now. Trump should have made or should have reprimanded that person and says, this is my guess. A president of a sovereign nation. Respectfully, I don't want you talking to him this way. That should have been said. Trump, who is the head of the United States right now, the commander-in-chief, should not allow an underling, someone who is not at the level of President Zelenskyy, speaking to him in that manner. Trump should have reprimanded that person right there for respect of the nation of the Ukraine. But he didn't do that. He reveled in the fact that his minions are ganging up on this guy. America is respected in many places in the world. But you start to lose that respect when you show disdain for other leaders. When you pound your chest, when you pound your chest and you tell other nations, we're bigger than you and we will destroy you if you come against us. This is not how you lead. The strongest person on the team, the biggest person on the team, does not exhort their force over everybody else. If you are the Michael Jordan, the LeBron James, the way that you lead is you uplift everybody else. To whom much is given, much is required. So yes, America has the great power. But America, with that great power, comes a lot of responsibilities. Where if the smaller countries that support you, that give you the minerals, their resources, the smaller countries, you have to be responsible with those resources and you have to respect their leaders. You cannot allow their leaders to come to your office and you let underlings, people who are not at the presidential level, talk to them in this manner. That's how you do as a leader. If you were the LeBron James or the Michael Jordans, if somebody was just berating one of your players, you got to be a leader and you got to say, hey, yo, be easy, homie. Like, we don't do that. Like, yo, why are you talking to my mans like that? Like, this is my guest in my home. Why are you talking to him like he's a little boy? Why are you talking to him like this? This is weird. I'm not going to allow you to talk to another president. President Trump and President Zelenskyy, there's two presidents in that room. Everybody else is below them. Everybody else is an underling. You're not at the same level. So if the president himself cannot control his underlings, that's known as disrespectful to the other president. And he didn't protect that president when he needed to show respect.
Donald Trump speaking with Vladimir Putin a couple of days ago. So that's new. He used to say, I'm not allowed to talk about that. Now he's admitting that he talks to Putin all the time, even when the US government doesn't release any information about those calls like they do with all other foreign leaders.
And just notice how, let me run it back. This is what I was talking about earlier. I want you to notice how Zelenskyy is holding his hands. He's gripping his fingers. He's trying his best not to say stuff. He's trying his best to say the right things, to make sure that he doesn't come across overpowering. This was a very tough position for Zelenskyy. Understanding, yeah, I'm a smaller nation. Yes, we need America, the biggest country, the biggest military power. Yes, to whom much is given, much is required. So I do understand. And as a president of a smaller country that is in need of help, this is how the world is run. The bigger countries up in the free world, right? Because there are bullies in the world, right? The Russias and there's other bullying countries. I can't even name them, but the free world and those who participate in NATO, those who participate in the G7, those who participate in, we want to live a free world, we don't want to always be at war. Those countries, the big ones, they support the smaller countries that are vulnerable. This is how it works. So if you aren't an American and you're out here pouting your chest and you're like, oh yeah, we're bigger than everybody else, you're a small country, go back to your country, what you must understand is there's a lot of these small countries, and when they get together, they make an America. So if you piss off enough small countries that get together, they can be a pain in your side. I ain't saying they can overtake America. I'm just saying they can be a pain in your side. And what happens? Other big countries start to gather around them because they're like, wait, you can't bully people. Free world does not like bullies. So if you start to bully smaller countries, you will start to realize that a lot of these big countries will start to align themselves with these smaller countries, and that could be a pain in your side, something you don't want for your own people. While you can say, yeah, if we go to war, man, we'll just smash you. Yeah, that may be the truth, but what you don't understand is war is costly. You don't want war. War is costly. Nobody wins in war at all. Nobody ever wins, because you talking about 700,000 people dying. It's a lot of people. So do you ever win a war? Nobody can win a war. Nobody wants war. We want peace. That's why the free world is there. So if you are an American and you're sitting there telling your patting your chest and telling oh, we're bigger than you and we will crush you and don't talk to my president like that, please understand that there are small countries and they have their sovereignty. But they have, in history, small countries have overtaken big places. The Jewish people, the Israelites, when they were going into big organizations, when they were going into big territories, it's because God was on their side. This is the thought. This is the mindset of an heir to the kingdom of Christ. And now I'm hoping that 1 billion people can adapt this same mindset. A billionaires. If you upset a lot of small countries, the bigger countries will come to their aid. And while you may win a war against small countries, you can lose a lot in that war. You can lose a lot. America have not seen war in this country. In your generation, if you're watching, you have not seen what war is like. But there are people around the world that can tell you nobody ever wins a war. If a war comes on your shore and you're assured that your country is going to win because you have one of the greatest militaries, rest assured that that war will not end well because somebody can lose their lives. Whenever Americans go to war, whenever America sends troops over, there are parents that have to sit there with their hands gripped. There are parents that have to sit there with their butts clenched because they know that their child may not come back. They may lose their child. So imagine war coming to America. While we may win, do we ever win? Think about that before you start parading yourself as a Republican and you're so happy that, oh my gosh, who is this Zelenskyy guy? I think we can beat him. Nobody ever wins a war.
Any information about those calls like they do with all other foreign leaders. Second was the truly bizarre revelation that Russian state-controlled media, for some reason, was in the Oval Office today when this scene happened with Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Now, to be clear, the Trump White House will not allow the Associated Press or Reuters into the Oval Office to cover White House events anymore, but somehow TASS media, Kremlin-controlled Russian state media, somehow made their way into the Oval Office for this berating of the Ukrainian president today, and Russian state media was in the Oval Office somehow live streaming from the event. Afterwards, look at this bizarre statement from the White House attributed to an unnamed White House official. Quote, TASS was not on the approved list of media for today's pool. As soon as it came to the attention of press office staff that he was in the Oval, he was escorted out by the press secretary. He is not on the approved list for the press conference.
What? What are we talking about here? How big is the Oval Office? See, this is the thing that upsets me. This is the thing that really makes me angry because people say it's easier for you to apologize, right? Just apologize. Just do it and then apologize later. So the task reporter is not on the approved list, but somehow he got there and he was able to live stream in the Oval Office. And then we put out a statement later on that he was not on the approved list. And as soon as we found out, he was escorted in the Oval Office. How big is that space? The press person that was in that room, scanning the room, understanding who everybody that's in the room. You can't just enter the Oval Office. You need a badge. You need press credentials to be in that room. How do you enter the room with the badge, walking in there with your camera equipment? For those of you who don't understand how media works. To live stream, right? You can live stream from your phone. You can live stream from your computer with some type of live streaming device, but you can't, look, you can't just walk up in there with nothing, right? To live stream, you got to be, you're in the room. How did you get in the room to begin with? Because security has to make sure everybody in that room with another president, everybody has to be vetted. Everybody in. So was it a security breach? So there was a security breach in the meeting with Zelensky, with President Zelensky of the Ukraine. There was a security breach because you said, we do not know how this guy got into this meeting. Do you understand how serious that is? Do you understand the security implications and why that is so dangerous that somebody got into that room without your knowledge, without you knowing? That is a security breach. What if that media, that Russian reporter, what if he was an operative to take out Zelensky? This is a Russian person who is fighting against Zelensky and the Ukraine. You allow that person to be in the room with that president when the president was coming. When the president made his journey to the United States, his people have to make sure that there is security for that president to come to the White House. So now you allow his enemy in that room without his knowledge and his security forces knowledge. Where we do that at? And how that happened? How did the security person for Zelensky not be known or be made aware of the Russia media being in that room? And how in the world did the United States press corps, or the person that is responsible for everybody entering that room, who you look into everybody's eyes, are you supposed to be here? Are you supposed to? How is it that we didn't know that that person was in that room? That was a security breach for the president of the Ukraine, because that person could have been dangerous to the president of the Ukraine. And the fact that you did not let their security forces know, or their security person know that. Have you ever seen any type of espionage movie? Have you seen any movie at all? Any movie that has to do with this type of stuff? Born Identity? Breach? Anything? Everybody getting into that room? You need security clearance to get into that room. Are you kidding me? You need security clearance to get into that room. And you're telling me that a Russian media person got into that room without your knowledge? Cap. I call cap. You knew. Because Trump is doing the bidding for Russia. Trump is doing the bidding for Putin, because it's obvious that when Putin helped him to win his first election, he owes Putin. So now this entire thing that Rachel and MSNBC is laying out is evident that, hey, you're turning off the support for the power grid for the Ukrainians. Your Attorney General, Pam Bondi, is canceling stuff that we have in place to, say, hey, foreign influences within our nation, you're stopping stuff that has to deal with that, because Russia knows that they need those things. The sanctions and stuff that you're saying, hey, man, we no longer need that. You're stopping all of that. Isn't this obvious to y'all? While we celebrate our countrymen getting fired, while we have Elon Musk holding chainsaws and parading with graphic tees that he's a slasher. Something else is going on in our nation that we need to pay attention to. Let's keep going.
The approved list. I have no idea how we got in there. To live stream for Kremlin-controlled state media the president and vice president of the United States screaming at Ukraine's president and berating him with Russian talking points. We don't know how the Kremlin guy got in here. It was weird. He just wandered in. I mean, people do. It's a free country. People do just wander into the Oval Office.
No, they don't, Rachel. No, they don't.
A very radical thing is happening in our country. It is not only radical in the sense that it is a large directional change, right? Switching sides in a war, now standing against our allies of the last 80 years, now siding with Russia instead. I mean, no longer siding with the free world, now siding with the authoritarian governments of the world. Like, it's not just radical in that it is a 180-degree directional change. It is also radical in the sense that it is really radically unpopular with the American people. I mean, you can see that in the polling. Quinnipiac poll this month. Should the U.S. trust Vladimir Putin? Yes, 9%. No, 81%. Here's another one, the Economist YouGov poll out this month. Do you have a favorable or unfavorable view of Vladimir Putin? The American public say favorable 11%, unfavorable 78%. The American people are not clamoring for us to ally ourselves with Vladimir Putin. Right? You can see it very clearly in the polling. And it begs the question, well, okay, who wants this? Who voted for this? Why are we doing this? If the American people don't want this, why are we doing it? Who says we should do this? Who's making us do this? And why? And for whose benefit? You can see the same dynamic in the bewildered and outraged questions that Americans are asking their Republican members of Congress at these town halls, which Republicans are now realizing they better not do any more of. They're asking their Republican senators and their Republican members of Congress, what the heck is going on? What is going on here? But let's be clear. I mean, what's going on here is pretty obvious at this point. Because this is all really good news for somebody.
Yes, it is.
Stop.
And let me share with you real quick other governments that are like that. Authoritarian regimes. Let's look at them real quick. One-party states and communist regimes. China, ruled by Chinese Communist Party, with Xi Jinping as leader. North Korea, a totalitarian state led by Kim Jong-un and the Workers' Party of Korea. Vietnam, controlled by the Communist Party of Vietnam. Cuba, governed by the Communist Party of Cuba. Laos, led by the Laos People's Revolutionary Party. And then here are some absolute monarchies. Saudi Arabia, ruled by the Al Saud royal family with no democratic elections. United Arab Emirates, the UAE, a federation of monarchies where rulers hold significant power. Brunei, Sultan Hassan. Well, let me see here. Let me make sure I get you guys the right pronunciation here. Sorry, forgive me.
Brunei Sultan Hassan al-Bolkiah.
All right, holds absolute authority. Oman, led by the Sultan Hassan bin Tariq. Militaries and hybrid regimes. Russia, Iran, Myanmar, Egypt. So I wanted to tell you guys this because when we talk about the free world, when we talk about countries that support other countries' right to protect themselves. Other countries, that say, hey, we want you to have your people live the way that they want to live. This is what we're talking about. So we want to make sure that countries like Russia and North Korea and Vietnam and other countries that don't care about the rule of law in other countries, we want to make sure that those countries do not take power over everybody else. And if they do, it's going to be bad implications for the rest of the world. So countries like Russia and their president infiltrating our our government and having this sort of power that Rachel has been laying out this entire video. If you don't understand the implications, I'm trying to help you to understand it. I'm trying my best here.
The American people for whom it's good. It's not our allies for whom it's good. And this is nothing that anyone campaigned on, and it is nothing that anyone has.
What has happened at the Oval Office has been not what we expected it to be. We knew that communication with Trump and his team is going to be difficult. We did not expect that. We did not expect what we have seen. It's unimaginable that the leader of the free world, the leader of the biggest democracy in the world, would attack the president of the country that has been attacked, while at the same time conducting negotiations in a very friendly tone with the country that is the aggressor, that is the Russian side. We definitely did not see that coming, even though we expected the communication between Trump and Zelenskyy to be tougher. That is not what we expected. So it is, of course, a new era.
One family's legacy is about to crack wide open. From Brandon Jacobs Jenkins, the Tony-winning playwright of Appropriate.
In the relationships between the two states.
That's a member of Ukraine's parliament, Inna Sovsun, reacting tonight to the bizarre Oval Office spectacle today in which Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance screamed Russian talking points at Ukraine's president on camera. Joining us now is Michael McFaul, former U.S. ambassador to Russia. Ambassador McFaul, it's really nice of you to make time to be here with us tonight. Thank you.
Glad to be here, Rachel.
So today, I think, felt to many people like putting a final piece of punctuation on it. This is a full realignment of American foreign policy overall. Under Donald Trump, the United States will abandon an allied democracy. We will support the autocrat. We will support Vladimir Putin instead. Do you see it that way? And can you help us understand the broader implications of what we saw today?
Tragically, I see it that way. And you just presented a lot of evidence to support that hypothesis before the commercial break. And this is such a sad day for me personally, as somebody who cares about democracy and fights autocracies. And I know American history. We haven't been perfect. We haven't always been on the side of the Democrats, but we have a long-standing tradition of standing up to autocrats. Think about it. All of our enemies throughout all of our history have been dictatorships. Our most enduring allies, our strongest allies, have always been democracies. And today, our president wants to switch sides in the struggle between autocrats and Democrats. He doesn't want to be the leader of the free world. He wants to join the autocratic club. And I just think it's sad on a kind of ethical and moral level, but I also think this does not serve American national security interests. If he goes down this path, we will be isolated from our allies in Europe, from our allies in Asia. The rest of the world will hedge their bets, and we will be alone.
I know that you have been following the actual negotiations to end the war in Ukraine closely. I also understand you spoke with members of President Zelensky's delegation since the Oval Office meeting today. What are they telling you? What is your sense about the best path forward and what options they have now?
Well, this was supposed to be a good day. They negotiated very hard, both sides, on this minerals deal. I'm not a big fan of it, but both sides thought it was in their interests. They thought that getting a direct meeting with the president was what Zelensky needed, because that's what everybody says. You got to do business with President Trump directly. And so it was their idea to fly to Washington to have this meeting. And they're just in shock. The whole country is in shock. By the way, the whole country's rallying to President Zelensky's support, just like the rest of Europe is as well. But they did not expect this. And I got to tell you, honestly, this is my opinion, not theirs. But we keep talking about Trump wants to do a deal to end the war. I'm not so sure that's true. I think he wants to do a deal with Putin. That's the real play, as you were just describing. And the Ukraine thing is kind of a sideshow. And if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, Trump doesn't really care, because there's no other way to explain all of the concessions that he has already given to Vladimir Putin, even before any negotiation. So that suggests to me that, in fact, he actually is not trying to negotiate a deal. He's trying to nurture a relationship with Vladimir Putin. And as you said, I hope the American people understand this is wrong. It's not in our national interest. And I think Trump is way out ahead of the people, as your polling that you just described.
Absolutely. And this is this is one of the points that I wanted to make about that one in this video. When I heard that, and I totally agree with him, because I think the deal's already been done. I think there's a deal, and I think that the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, has already told Trump what he wants and what he's willing to come to the table with, and he wants part of the Ukraine. So, and that's already there, and I think Trump agrees with it, and then he's already given Trump, hey, man, I want X, Y, and Z, and go to the table, ask him, and this is what I'm willing to do. Because Zelensky and others, Zelensky and his country have made deals with Russia before, but the ceasefire deals that they made, Russia just says, yeah, we made a deal, but who cares, right? So that's what it's like. Yo, if you watch, I listened to the entire press conference with Zelensky, right? And Zelensky was, he was expressing that there has been deals that we have made with this country, with Putin, and they have reneged on the deal. We have come to the table and we have made deals and we have signed the paper, right? And after signing the paper, Russia just went ahead and just did everything they wanted to do. So, and then he kept asking Trump, what if you and Putin and we sit down and we say, okay, let's cease fire. What if they renege on that deal, just like they reneged with us? What did President Trump say? He's not going to renege with me. It wasn't me. So I know him. He's my boy. And whatever deal we come up with, it's going to be in his best interest. So what is that deal, though? You obviously are not going to know the secret concessions that Trump has made with Zelensky. You're not going to know that, but you better believe that it's going to be in the best interest of Russia and Putin. And if it's not, Putin won't do it, because, like Trump said, Russia has the cards. So it's really Russia's deal, not the deal that Zelensky would want for his country. So you already know that if it's not in the best interest of Russia, and Russia owning and taking very different territories from the Ukrainians, that they're not going to do no deal. So that's what this whole thing is about. Trump's alignment and friendship with Putin, because he's friends. They're friends. In one report, he said that him and Putin went through this entire thing where if you remember, Putin, the whole President Biden situation where Beau Biden or whoever his son was, or his son, that whole situation that they went through, and they found out that it was not Russia's fault because Russia said it was not their fault. How naive can you be? So he was like, we went through that together. So it's like they're boys. All Putin got to do is just, make President Trump feel a certain way because he likes praises. So all he got to do is just tell you, hey, man, you're one of the best presidents in the United States, history of the United States. You're better than Washington. You're better than, everybody there. And he eats that stuff up. I mean, man, he eats that stuff up. How can you allow somebody who loves praises and then you put him against somebody like Vladimir Putin? Do y'all know who this guy is? Do y'all know what KGB means?
Yeah, I think whatever Americans voted for, I don't think people voted to make the United States a subsidiary diplomatic entity to Vladimir Putin, which is the way that Trump is operating here. You mentioned the rest of Europe rallying to Zelensky. One of the things that we saw today were leaders of democracies from all over Europe publicly thanking Zelensky today, standing with him in solidarity after this meeting with Trump. You talk about whether or not the United States is any longer associated with the free world, whether we are the leader of the free world. If we're not, is it becoming clear who is?
This is what I was saying earlier.
You talk about whether or not.
This is what I was trying to say earlier, right? Small countries need big countries to survive in the world. All right. So for those of us who are pounding our chest and pounding our chest and stuff and saying, well, you're small, we're big. Again, to whom much is given, much is required. So when small countries are being bullied, bigger nations are going to step up, or it's either going to be the big nations or smaller nations are going to step up on the world stage. And they're going to, the Spanish PM expresses support for Ukraine amid White House dispute. Free world needs a new leader. Europe defends Zelensky after Trump attack. All right. DPA International. Ukraine can't count on Germany. Ukraine can count on Germany. All right. Schultz says after Trump threat. So Germany is supporting the Ukraine. All right. Financial Times. Trump Zelensky meetings live. UK PM Keir Starmer express. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing those names wrong. I'm not used to these names. I'm used to saying these names. So Keir Starmer expresses support for Ukraine after calls to Trump and Zelensky. So this is what I was saying. Nobody likes a bully, okay? The free nation, the free world does not like a bully. So they're going to stand up for the smaller nations. So this is what's happening. This is what's going to happen, especially if they know that once these oligarchs or once these totalitarians they know implications for their own people. If you are a president or a leader of a nation, your main job is to protect your people, because nobody ever wins in a war, whether you have the biggest army or not. And your job, and you know that you would destroy anybody. It's never going to go when bullets starts to fly. Just like even Trump himself says in that meeting, when bullets starts to fly, you know who stops those bullets? Bodies. For the most part, it's going to be bodies that stops those bullets. You don't ever want war. It's a terrible thing. Trust me. People who live in other nations can tell you that.
The United States is any longer associated with the free world, whether we are the leader of the free world. If we're not, is it becoming clear who is?
Well, I want to keep hope alive. President Trump and his team don't seem to want to be part of the free world. But I'm an American too. I want to be part of the free world. I hope there are other Americans who believe the same as me, and I don't want them to turn this way, because I don't believe it serves America's interests. And by the way, there's a lot of Americans like me who think we're more than just mineral deals. We stand for more of that. So the fight is still on. But to your point, yes, the center of gravity has moved to Europe. I was at the Munich Security Conference. Actually, we talked at 4 a.m. there. I now remember. And the move then was, well, we've got to pick this up. We've got to unite. We've got to stand behind the democratically elected leader of Ukraine against this imperialist dictator that has invaded his country. And tragically, for now, that's where the center of gravity for the free world is.
Michael McFaul, former U.S. ambassador to Russia. I do appreciate you being here. I know that there's a lot of demand for your time on a night like this, after a shock like this. It's an honor to have you here tonight, sir. Thank you.
Can't imagine being anywhere else. Thanks for having me, Rachel.
Thank you,
All right.
Michael.
We've got much more ahead here tonight, including, I'm really happy to say, a live visit with Senator Cory Booker coming up.
So there we have it. Thank you so much for being here with me. I just wanted to make sure that I highlight certain things, and I know this video was kind of long and it's gotten kind of long, but that entire layout that Rachel did, that entire layout is to let you understand, like, while we may not know what's going on inside, like specific things that are going on, but the things that are public, the obvious things that are happening, you got to pay attention to them, because at the end of the day, this is bigger than just America. America stands to lose allies, countries that are aligned with America and giving resources and making sure that America keeps its power, making sure that you have the freedom that you have here in this country. It takes a bigger effort to make that happen than just everything that's happening in here. It's a big effort. So I want people to understand that while we're in America, and like I said, I keep saying this, I'm driving this home. While we're in America, struggling with the price of eggs and groceries prices going up, celebrating 12,000 plus governmental employees who have nothing to do with politics, who are just doing their jobs, going home, making sure that they have dinner on the table, while some of us are celebrating those people getting fired, while we're toting a South African, right, who an apartheid baby, Elon Musk, holding a chainsaw and going, yeah, I'm the Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'm gonna change. Like, while you're celebrating all of that and you're reveling in your victory for President Trump because you feel like, oh, Kamala Harris was not the right candidate because she kills babies and she was going to be a baby killer and all of those things, as if she was the one that was doing those things. These are policies that everybody support. Wherever you stand with politics, wherever you are with politics, I want you to understand, we got to come to a place where we are able to turn off the noise, quiet the noise, and hear and see everything that's going on. There's going to be smoke screens. There's going to be a lot of things, right? So Doge is distracting you. There's a lot of things that's going on that has bigger implications with us here in the United States. Because if Russia is able to invade the United States, how the Russian media, Tusk, whatever their name was, how they get into the White House without them knowing, all of these things that are happening that are pro-Russia, if you're not paying attention, if you're locked in on Fox News and Truth Social and other Republican-based news outlets and these type of things, they're not going to put them out there because it's not pro-Trump. If you are not getting this type of information and seeing what's going on, you're going to miss a very important part of history. And you are on the wrong side of that history, because America does not stand with totalitarian leadership. America does not stand with any type of leadership that does not support a free democracy where leaders where kings and queens can lead, where leaders are chosen by a family, and if you're born within that family, you're going to lead this country. We are a free nation. We are a democratic nation. We are led by a constitution. If you're not in love with the Constitution, but you're more in love with Trump and what he's doing, I want you to take a second to realize that what you are doing is not American. And I'm going to end with this question. Do you know who Putin is? And do you know what Russia's and Putin's implications are on the free world? If you don't know that, I want you to either Google it, Chat GPT, Google KGB, learn about Russia and what Russia means to the free world. And then come back to this video if you have to. If you don't remember the different segments of this video, come back here, rewatch this video, answer and think about the questions that Rachel was asking, and then think about what it means if Russia infiltrates our systems. I'm going to leave it right there. The mindset, right, of an heir to the kingdom of Christ is that we support good for our nation. That is the mindset of an heir to the kingdom of Christ. And if you don't have, and we are looking for 1 billion people to adapt that mindset. That's what this station is all about. That's what this channel is all about. The mindset of a billionaire. All right? 1 billion heirs that think like Christ. Thank you for watching. I'm Harry B. I'll see you on the next video.